Podcast. I am your host, Jessica Burgio, and I have a super special friend guest with me today. This is Rickey of 413 Apparel, and Rickey and I go back from our gym days, so I wanted to bring him on to the podcast to talk about what he's doing with his company right now and kind of just share the backstory of how he got where he is. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is awesome and long time coming.
I know. It's fun because, growing up in San Diego, when I thought about putting this show together, I was like, I know so many people doing such great things, especially like entrepreneurs that I've watched start with nothing, you had nothing when I'm like, this didn't really even exist when we met. And to watch, you grow and to become and do all the things that you're doing has been really cool to watch and very inspiring.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we would bump into each other at the gym all the time and chat about business and life and just all the things. And it's really cool when you can like see the story behind how somebody got where they are, because I think often with social media we see the after,
absolutely, and
we don't get to know like the real journey behind how someone got there. You see fitness guy, good looking, young, you're like, oh, he's got it easy, he has it made, everything came easy to him, he didn't have to work for it. And this podcast is to motivate and inspire you to know the backstory of how people got where they are. So, and you're just getting started, like your company is like going right now, but I want you to take us back to like younger Rickey and
all
like
the way back.
Where did this come from? Have you always had like an entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah, so actually kind of, yes. I actually went to school for computer information systems. So I got my degree in computer information systems, but I had a database class, and in that class I realized that technology would always be the backbone of every company, and I graduated college in 2012, so I knew that especially moving forward that was what it would be. So I really got into tech and everything, started working full-time, working cybersecurity, but I was always hustling, doing entrepreneurial things. Then I got really into fitness, and I started 413 Health and Fitness, which was my first online personal training brand.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was
I didn't know.
yeah.
Okay,
so
cool.
that's where it was. And that was, so I got laid off from 2 jobs. I worked for a big company for 2 years, then got laid off, then worked for a small cybersecurity company for 6 months. Right before I got laid off, I started 413 Health and Fitness. I had got my NASM certification. I started, getting clients online. I moved to San Diego. This was after I got laid off from the second job. Got another job out in San Diego and was really hustling, doing 413 Health and Fitness and working full-time in cybersecurity.
Okay, cool.
So within 6 months of me being in San Diego in early 2016, I left my full-time job because 413 Health and Fitness, my online personal training company, was going really, really well. And I did that for about a year, and I saw an ad on Instagram for this other apparel company, and I loved the tank, and I was like, man, like I really just kind of like want to make something like that. I was like, I had merch for my clients and everything. And so
your first little hit of like, I can do that. I want something like that. See, Instagram is good for inspiring, ideas and
100%.
thoughts. So I bag on it a little bit because we were having a pre-conversation about how it's given us a warped sense of like what's real and what's not. But sometimes that just little spark.
Oh yeah. Where
you were like, I can do that.
Yeah. And it was and so when that happened, I actually went to T-Shirt Mart here in San Diego, and I said, hey, if I wanted to just get like 100 of something custom made, where would I go? And this guy gave me a link to this site that was basically like a Yellow Pages for the fashion district in LA. And he was like, hey, here's the link. Good luck. You're probably going to have to call a few hundred people to figure out,
to find your person,
right? So I was like, hey, at least I know where to go. So the next day I was home, and I just started calling around. And I called around, and then I drove to LA, got bounced around to a few different people for a few different trips, ended up finding, my designer, who is still with us today, and she's amazing. And that's the basis of how it got started. And when I started it, it wasn't a, oh, I want to make this into a big company. I was like, I just want like 100 of these for me and to send to friends and family. And if people buy it, great. If not, I don't have to do laundry all the time.
Oh my God.
I have a bunch of them.
Yeah.
So that was honestly how it started.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, I think people think you have to go from 0 0 to like 1,000, where you have to have the website and the brand and the this and that before you can even just start to dabble.
Yep.
It's like, I think sometimes you got to try things on just a little bit, and that's what I always want to like remind people, just to give permission to ideas.
100%.
Because I would get dinged for, oh, you're always doing different things, and I'm like, I have to try different things to see what feels good.
Yep.
And that was one of the things. We went to dinner one time, and I went there to pick his brain about creating my own apparel company, because that was something I was super passionate about doing too. And what's funny is, you know, fitness is the way we know each other, but I have a huge history with fitness, and that was like my dream. And I was like, you know what, cool, like someone's doing it the way I would want to be doing it. Like, not that I couldn't do the same thing, but that's how the Beauty Inspires Beauty kind of took off too, was like that apparel to support the belief and the mission of like what you're trying to do.
Absolutely.
So what is the meaning behind the 413 for you?
Yep. So 413 is for my favorite Bible verse, Philippians 4:13. The reason why I actually called it that was because when I got laid off from my second job, I was actually really angry, and I was like, God, I feel like you placed something on my heart, and I was like, I'm just going to name it a Bible verse so that like if it fails, it's like it's kind of not on me. That's like how I felt, right? And it wasn't this like, I didn't name it from some sort of like crazy inspiration. I was just like, no, like I'm upset that I got laid off from 2 jobs, and I was like, well, let me just like, I'll put your name on it, I'll pray about it, I'll work hard, I'll see where it goes. And it started online training, and it turned into apparel, which is like exactly what you said. Like, you can't always go into it like you always want to have the end in sight, but you can't be so hard pressed to what the end's going to look like, because when you get into it, your likes about what you do is going to change. Your viewpoint of things are going to change. You always have to be able to be fluid. And then even if you're, locked into an industry, the way in which you go about that industry is going to change. So it's like it's a fluid thing. So, but that's how it started.
That's amazing. I feel like and I'm like a super type A, and I feel like you probably have a bit of that in you too. Like, we like to know the plan. We want to know that something is going to produce some sort of ROI for the work we're putting in. 100%. And I think that's why people stay in corporate type jobs, because there's a roadmap to, if you work this many years and you do this much, you will go up this high in the company and you will retire at this age, and there's your plan.
Yep.
You're happy?
Absolutely.
Cool. But for people who are entrepreneurs, like taking the risks, spending the money, even investing in 100 shirts, it's a chunk of change.
It's a lot.
And now look at the numbers you're having to invest to produce product. Like,
absolutely.
Your mind wouldn't even have gone that far a couple of years ago. And even when we sat down like 3 or 4 years ago to talk about like how you got started and all of that, it's like, to watch the evolution has been pretty incredible. So you have always been someone who shows up super motivational, like on social media. I think that's why like I'm attracted to watching your stuff. It pipes me up, and like I stay around people who are doing better than me. Like, that's just like I always try to be in a room where like I'm growing. Yeah. Right. And I feel like you bring a lot of value when you show up on social media. Was that something innate in you to do? Did someone teach you how to show up on social media? Like, because I feel like you've grown organically on social media quickly, but like you've done a lot of things to get you there.
Yeah, for me, it's more of a lot of the messages that I talk about and that I put out on social media are for myself. Yeah. I think that there's a level of projection that I do on social media, and sometimes it's simply because it's like I might actually wake up and not feel motivated. So if I put it out there, it's like I have to step through it. Like, if we went through life just always focused on our feelings, we would never get anything done. And there's half the week where I'm like, I don't feel like doing this, but I have to show up for myself. I have to show up for my team. I have to show up in so many different facets where I'm like, if I put it out there and I just do the work, it's a really good feeling. And it's also a good feeling that other people get inspired and they do the work, because I also don't feel like I'm alone in it. And when it comes to social media, it's a platform where different platforms where you actually can feel alone, because you just get caught up in just the likes and the following count. And to be honest with you, when I started to become and push more organic, thoughts and messages, my following started to go down. And I was completely okay with it, because the quality of people who were DMing me, the quality of conversations, the opportunities that opened up were so much bigger and so much better. So it's, a lot of times just me being like, I need to put this out there because I need that pep talk. And, I work with a great team. My brother is our project management lead. Corey Gray is our media lead, and they do the same thing. And when you see that consistently on social, when you see they push things like that on social and how they live their lives, from a team perspective, I sit and I have the most confidence in the world, because I'm like, these guys have my back, my side, my front, and I have that same thing with them. So it's like, you just feel stronger. So it's like the more people you get around, the more people that are inspired and motivated by you, it's like you just don't want to quit because you don't want to be that weak link. So yeah.
Well, and when you create a company that's not just about you and your well, like you've created something for everybody. So if you stepped out and you didn't play full out, like you'd be letting them down.
Absolutely.
And you created a brand that's bigger than you could have. Like it's got a ripple effect going that people show up and want to put in work and be a part of your company because of who you are and like what you've grown.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have to talk about because if you guys know Ricky, like he did make a small appearance on this little show that we know called The Bachelorette.
Yep.
And I thought that was hilarious. I had no idea you were doing it. You didn't tell any of us because you couldn't. And I remember you came. I was like, you did what? Yeah. So can you talk about that experience?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't even have a question.
Just
explain that.
So it was actually kind of funny. I was supposed to. Well, they wanted me to go on the season before I actually went on. So
Did they contact you, or how did you apply for that? Okay.
So I was actually at Fit downtown.
Okay.
And there was someone who was recruiting people for the show. Scout. And so I was on the Stairmaster, and she was like, "Hey, you have the look that we want to have on the show." And I was like, "Great." I was like, "I don't want to be on the show." They're like, "Well, can we just like get your contact info, whatever?" And they gave me a card and everything. I was like, "Sure, that's fine." And then they emailed me, and I was like, "No." I said no. So then fast forward a year later, they reach out again, and I was single, and I was working, a cybersecurity job, and my contract was ending. So it was like, okay, like
divine intervention.
It was kind of perfect, and I was like, I wasn't too hyped up on that job, and 413 was still kind of in its infancy stage, where I knew that if I had to go away for 8-9 weeks, like we would be okay. So
I thought you were gonna say if I went away for 8-9 weeks, I could really like plug my shit. That's what I thought you were gonna say.
So that happened, and kind of went through the whole process and ended up on the show. And I will say it was a funny thing, because I initially, even for the season that I went on, I was very hesitant about it. It was my dad, it was my mom, it was Corey, who's our media director, it was my brother Dez, who were like, "You'd be stupid not to just go." He's like, "No matter how this turns out, it's like an experience that a percentage of people get. You have to just try it."
Even your family was all about it.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say about my family is, in all of this, like my family is a very push family. It's a go and see, go and do, like, because at the end of the day, like, you'll be fine. And also experience, like, the experiences that I had, and the certain levels of emotions and things that you learn, and the rooms that you're able to be in with certain people. By not accepting and trying those experiences, you void yourself of any opportunity that could come from it. So they pushed.
That's awesome. And that is so true. And I actually, like, in another podcast that I recorded, the group said it was about, there's three of them. Yeah. And they were talking about, never wanting to be like the smartest person in the room, or getting yourself even in rooms where more opportunity can happen. And it's like, I think we let our insecurities like play a role. Like, you could have been like, "No, I don't really want to do that. I'm not interested. I definitely don't want to date whoever you're going to have on the show."
Absolutely.
Like, you just saw it as a bigger opportunity that might lead you somewhere else.
Absolutely.
And that's, again, circling back to what we said earlier about not having expectations on how things are going to work out. Like, just being open and like showing up to things that you might not have otherwise thought you would want to do.
Yeah, no, it's so true.
Yeah. So are there any like juicy little like stories that you could share with us? I mean,
probably.
We'll talk about that later. Yeah.
But yeah, no, the one thing I'll say is in watching the show and actually being on and being kind of behind the fold of it, it's very different than what it seems like on TV. And I will also say that the people that you meet and the guys on the show, they were grade A people, individuals. Almost like no matter how they're cast, a lot of reality shows, like, they typecast. They have to have people fit a certain whatever to push a narrative. But I will say that there are some of those guys are my close friends, to this day. I was talking to one of them today, actually, who's just moving back to San Diego, who you'll actually see meet pretty soon, as well. So, it's cool. You meet a lot of good people.
That's awesome.
You meet a lot of good people.
I love that. And that's how incredible, like, to walk away with a couple new friends too, because I went through that experience with you. So tell us where 413 is headed,
Yeah.
and like the growth that you've had in the last couple of, I mean, it's been like the last year has really like kind of triple double. Like, talk to us about how you went from the vision, the 100 shirts that you ordered, and to how like there was a lot that happened in between.
Yeah.
You were working with bodybuilding.com for a little while too.
Yep. So so it started in February of 2017, and then it started with like the couple hundred shirts. And you know, I was actually dating a girl at the time, and she was like, well, why don't you just like get into you know, women's apparel? So we just put a basic crop together, and then like maybe I think it was like a tank or something, and we found a list of, or we not found a list, like we went on Instagram and we just like found a bunch of Instagram handles of girls that we thought that would, you know, like 413. Yeah. So we sent them out a bunch of packages, not really expecting much, but like the girls were like, oh my gosh, this is great. So then we added 2 people to our team, 2 women to our team as sponsored athletes. And then we got into the women's apparel. So then we stayed steady, kind of like at a low level. I was still a bodybuilding.com athlete. I kind of taken a little bit of a hiatus for the show. And then after I got back from the show, actually, is when things kind of took a turn for the worse. Like I got another job, and 2 days before I was supposed to start, they like rescinded my offer and like pushed it back because they didn't win the contract just yet. And so I was like on that last bit of cash of like, I put everything into 413. You know, I moved from Virginia where I was about to buy a house in DC, and then I'm coming in like, I don't know how I'm gonna make rent, you know, this month. And you know, I don't think I've ever actually told this story on camera, so I'm gonna be very vulnerable and transparent. So I'm waking up that morning, and I'm, you know, my parents are calling me and they're like, hey, how are you doing? Because they knew I was like, not feeling the best with everything. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make this work. And they were driving to Florida to see other family members. And they're like, well, we're going to invest in 413. And the way that we're going to invest in it, because you guys have been working so hard, and they were like, we will not allow you to quit because this could be something bigger than you ever imagined, is we are going to pay your rent for the rest of the year. And this was in, I think, July. Pay your rent for the rest of the year so you don't have to worry about it. Handle your job. Don't quit on 413. And that was kind of like the spark plug. So going into 2019, we rebranded. We had 2 really successful launches, and then fall of last year, we had like our worst launch. And it was something where I had to look internally. Like I felt like I messed up. Like I kind of pushed our team too hard. I was trying to be too many other brands. Like I was trying to figure it out. Like you get in a space where like when you're in the infancy stage, you're like, oh, everything is great. You're just throwing money at it and you're figuring out everything's exciting. Then you start to catch traction. Then you like contract a little bit. You're like, oh man, this is real. Then you kind of like almost micromanage and you're overbearing because you're like, I need this to work, and you're so tight grip. So when that happened, I remember I was back in Virginia for the holidays. My brother, who's our project management lead, and Corey, media director, we sat down and we were like, we have to do this differently. However it turns out in 2020, we're going to go out doing it our way. We're going to bring the pop of colors back. We're going to make sure our quality's top notch. We're going to crush content and do it in a way that's so different, and we don't care how people receive it. We're just going to do it
authentically on your brand voice.
100%.
Yeah.
So a few things happened this year that were actually very pivotal for us. So COVID happened, and that gave us more time. We hired a graphic design lead, so that was great. We hired another person for customer service, so now we have 2 customer service reps, and we were able to build the team before we even did a launch. Our first launch was in June, or was in late June. The beginning of June, all the protests happened. Corey texts me the beginning of June, maybe end of May, when I was like out protesting in San Diego, and he says, hey, I think now's the time for you to talk about us being a Black-owned company. And it's been difficult for us to be open about that in the past because most of our, you know, customer base is, you know, Caucasian women. And I was like, okay, like I was like, I'm just gonna get in front of my camera and I'm gonna talk for like 4 minutes. I sent it to him and I said, hey, I have no idea like really what I said. I kind of blacked out. Here it is. Like, yeah, I was like, I don't know. Here it is. So he texted me back. He's like, cool, got it. I'll handle it. The next day he goes, this was the single most powerful video I've ever put together. He's like, I'm just going to post it. I'm not even going to send it to you all. I'm just going to post it. So I posted, and it got like, I think almost 30,000 views on Instagram, shared ridiculous amounts of time. Site had started going crazy. Any stock that we had started flying off the shelf. And we were like 3 weeks away from a launch. So then that launch went crazy. Things sold out in 5 minutes. And things started to grow. And people started to realize the brand for what it was. And it shed light on who we always were. But also for us, it was like that time of just waiting was what we needed to get better, was what I personally needed to get better as a leader. And I think that's the other thing is like, that's never talked about in entrepreneurship. You can talk about the doing the work, but it's like the internal work of who you have to become is so important. Like I deal with so many more stressful situations now than I have when we first started that I don't find it stressful because I've learned and I've matured and I've become a better man that's equipped me for those situations that allow us to be more fluid, you know? So we did that launch, had another launch that went haywire as well. Now we're gearing up for Black Friday. We have a lot of plans for 2021. We scaled about 400% in like a 3-month time. And, you know, but we were ready for it because, you know, we built the team. We make sure we have everything scheduled out, planned. We communicate really well. We've established a culture of the brand, and that's been like the best thing.
That's like, I feel like a proud friend. I'm like, yeah, you did that damn thing. Like, and that's been so incredible to watch because I feel like as a brand, you're almost like, should I have a voice when it comes to this, or
100%.
should I just be mainstream and say nothing, or
Yep.
like how do you go against the social norms of what's acceptable to say or
Yeah.
post? And so for Corey to say to you, like, you need to like make a video because look around, look at our team, like the three of you, like that is who you are, and this and I think what I love about you, and you share this often on social media, is you weren't the typical struggle bus family. Like you came from a lot, you were given a lot of privilege. So I think sometimes I could see it being hard for you to like even relate to everyone on the social norm. Like, so for you to be able to speak up and just say, hey, listen, this is who we are as a brand and a company. Like, and we support this. And you know, this isn't what birthed this business, but it is who we are. And so we just want you to know who we are and what we stand for. And so to be able to speak on that and to like let people in, because that's what people want to buy into is the brand.
100%.
They want to feel a part of what you're doing.
Absolutely.
They can go get a beautiful workout tank top just about anywhere.
Anywhere.
Right?
You can go to Amazon, you can get it anywhere.
But when you wear something and you know the meaning behind it, it's like you're proud to wear that.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's so much more impactful. And so can you see now like all the work you did in showing up, being vulnerable, sharing how you were feeling, like days you didn't want to do shit, like how it then, like God always had your back in that he just needed you to see it and like do the work.
Absolutely. And I think the cool thing about it is like, as the brand has grown and as it's strengthened, wearing 413 means that much more. Yeah. And it's like, it's kind of a thing that's like hard to explain. It started as like, oh, this is a cool thing that we're doing. And then it's like, you go through and you struggle and you grind so hard with your team and you consistently like push. And then all of a sudden, like you get a little bit of a breakthrough where you're sitting saying, wait a minute, like we can do this in such a major way. And not only can we do this in such a major way, we're able to look back and we're able to realize like we built a foundation. And the other thing is like, I always give so much kudos to my team because I would not be here without them. And the one thing that I will say is resource wise, numbers wise, we don't have a crazy amount of numbers of people, but the intelligence and the output and just like the pure creative genius that like each and every individual that works for 413 has is unbelievable. Like we go into certain things, into launches, and we look at other brands and we were like, oh yeah, we can crush that, and not crush it as in like a competitive thing. It's like, no, we can do that and we can put our twist on it and we can flip it in a way that's completely us. And so it's that level of confidence and excitement and fun, because like we're not trying to be anybody else, and we're just kind of having fun creating, and it's like we'll let the chips fall where they may, you know?
Totally. But wouldn't you say, like when you went back to that moment where shit kind of was hitting the fan and the launch wasn't going well, you know, I find myself in creating this new business, how do you not look at what everyone else is doing?
Yeah.
Like, you're meant to do your market research
100%.
to see like that's social proof that works. 100%. Okay, that's hitting. Like, of course you want to do that, but then there's like a fine line between copying and saying, okay, well, we got to do it just like that because that's what is working.
Yes.
So it's hard when you're a new brand and you don't really have your feet under you yet to know like what you stand for and what you want to be putting out there. Yeah.
So I think I'm so happy you asked that question, because the one bit of advice that I got that was probably the best bit of advice years ago. I've been an entrepreneur for a minute. I created a social media content sharing website when I was in college called Mustache. And we got in front of like investors and stuff like that. And we were pitching, what we already had launched and everything. And it was kind of like a Pinterest for men. And the one thing, one of the guys, he raised his hand, he said, so like the best advice I can give you guys is not to compete. And I was like, that's not what you're taught. Like I went to business school. It's always like, your competition, you're supposed to compete. And he was like, let me bear myself out. Basically, you keep saying, I'm a Pinterest for men, or I'm this for whatever. And what you should do is, although you're in the same industry, find, even if it's a small area that no one else has and no one else can touch you on it. And it might be the brand or what the brand offers or the meaning behind the brand. And if you can pinpoint on that, because, apparel's saturated. Everybody wears clothes every day for the most part.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you can just do that, then you're in a good place. And so what we've tried to do for 413 is like, we know what's out there and we also know what works. And we're like, okay, like that's great. Let's find a way to put our own little twist on it. We did leggings years and years ago. And for fall, like we had kept talking about leggings or whatever. And I was like, and it kind of hit me a few weeks ago. I was like, I don't want to do that. And I was like, I want to do our own spin on some joggers. And this is how I want to do it. And this is the details that I want to add it. And I was like, because there's other companies out there, they crush doing that. Let them have that.
Yeah.
Let's try our thing here and do something different here. At some point in time, we might circle around it.
Sure.
But putting out a black jogger is so basic that it's like, who's to buy ours over someone? Yes, the brand might be strong, but there's a lot of other trusted companies that we're directly competing with. Let's try something that we don't have to compete with, and that's authentically ours and our brand. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
What's cool about talking about stuff like this, and I always try to relate it back to the beauty industry because this is a stylist-focused beauty industry podcast, and people might be wondering, why did you bring Rickey on? But it's about creating a brand, and we all are our own brand before you even create anything, right? So this is for like individual. All of us stylists are basically, I call us accidental entrepreneurs.
Yep.
Like,
Oh yeah.
I don't think many people in my industry go to beauty school thinking they're going to be an entrepreneur. They might think, oh, I'm going to go have a cool job where I can make my own schedule, work my own hours, kind of be in control. But we're not taught any business skill stuff.
Yeah.
We didn't go to business school.
Yep.
So, to hear other people's stories, and that's why I bring people like Rickey on to share like the journey of an idea turned into something, and
Absolutely.
like the whole process of getting there. Because if you want to create your own brand, whatever that may be, if it's education brand, if it's a product eventually, if it's something like I'm doing, if you want to educate and coach, you have to find that one thing that like makes you special or sets you apart or makes you just slightly more unique than the person next to you, because we all we could be doing and selling the exact same thing, but someone's going to resonate with you or someone's going to resonate with me. Like, there's
100%.
enough of everything to go around, and I think at this point, like, it's safe to say that like just about everything's been created.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you have to find a way to like make your shit unique and special. Did you have your team in place? Did you guys come up with this concept together? I know you had your own online workout thing, but how did you get your brother involved, and when did Corey come into the picture? Like, because I think developing and building a team, because I'm kind of doing that right now, like, it's like, where do you even start with that?
Yeah, so for me, I was like, I just went head first with it, and then I told my brother the idea that I had, and I showed him, and he was like, yeah, you should really do this, like that would be cool. And so he was more early on just in my corner, like making sure I had all the things like on the checklist to do and everything. So I was like, okay, that's kind of
like
project.
A sounding board.
Yeah, sounding board. And I was like, I was like, if this grows, like that's project management, like he's got that. And then it was funny, I think it was 2017, I was at the Olympia, and my birthday always falls on like September 15th, so it's always like on the Olympia weekend. And Corey texted me, he goes, hey, happy birthday. He goes, by the way, and I shot just regular fitness shots with Corey before, and him and my brother were great friends, and he texted me, he goes, hey, just so you know, if you ever need any shots with 413, he's like, I know you don't have an Instagram page for it or whatever, he's like, I'll do, shots, product video, all the stuff, like whatever you need. And I was like, you're the guy. I was like, whatever job that we have, like you had it. You got it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll just let you know what I envision as a brand, and you have full creative freedom. And that's how it's been. And then from that, it's like you figure out the things that you don't want to do. I was like, okay, we got too big for me to be packing and shipping. Well, we need somebody in charge of that. Well, when it comes to Instagram, like we want to do cooler graphics and stuff like that. Well, we need a graphic design lead. And then now, when we have launches, like we have an athlete manager, I'll need someone that's able to do some of the different day-to-day things. So it's a really as you go. And then I always believe like God puts people in your place, in a season and for a reason. And I'm telling you, like when things started happening, I was like, I see why these people are here. And it's been crazy. It's been fun.
That's so cool. And it's like, again, back to what we said in the beginning, like not having an expectation of like how you need to do something. Like these people just came into your life and it worked out. Like that's kind of how people have come into my situation too, with like building this team too. And it's intimidating to be like, for me, especially like a lead, because I do have a direct way of like the way I want things to be. So it's like, I'm relearning how to just like, let things be what they will be. And that's why like even doing this podcast was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a professional interviewer. Like I didn't go to school for broadcasting and journalism, but if I'm going to do something, I have friends that are in town. I want to have casual conversations to talk about how people got where they were. So what a crazy journey that you've been on. So do you have like are you still working in the cyber world? Or you got that going too still?
Yep. So I'm still working in cybersecurity full time, and then work with a team of 7 for 413. So it's kind of weird. People are like, why aren't you doing 413 full time yet? And it's, when it's product based, there's a lot of money that you're putting in. And even though you're making really, really good numbers and everything, what I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm in just a good position. And then also, it's like, you have to put your life jacket on before you put anything else on. And then also when it comes to 413, there's a lot of things that are risky that I want to actually do before I take the jump and before I'm like, okay, this is full time and everything. So yeah, that's basically the day to day. It's crazy busy. Fun.
That's smart. I know you are crazy busy. I swear every time we talk, it's like, I got another meeting. I got to do this. I gotta do that. And I'm like, I feel you. So I always like to leave like our guests with like, I know the usual question is the stigma behind becoming a hairdresser or being in the beauty industry. So I always love to hear people's perception, because I know how important, getting your hair done is to you. Like, and you were pitching your barber the other day, which I was like, yes, like
absolutely.
showing him some love.
Absolutely.
The stigma behind, I'm just a hairdresser, I'm just somebody in the industry. And that also falls into like our love, we're both personal trainers prior to, of like, I'm just a personal trainer, but every industry can be whatever you want it 100%. To be, right?
100%.
So what is your perception of like what this industry could be? And even I like to relate it to personal training too, because I feel like that's an accidental entrepreneur job as well. But what is your perception of like our industry and what it's been as a whole? Like you have your experience as a client in the barbershop, but like...
No, I think it's the most needed industry. I mean, when it comes to, me and getting my hair cut, it's like I always look forward to it. I always make sure it's a thing that I do before any special occasion, event, wedding that I just went to my best friend's wedding. I think that those things are so needed. They change people's perception of themselves, like within an hour. Yeah. And I think that that's the coolest thing. And when it comes to just like, when like you were saying, like just an entrepreneur, I've worked in corporate jobs and, people have fancy titles, but at the end of the day, sometimes people are just doing one thing. True. And they're very bored and it's not fun.
That's true.
And they aren't actually living the life that they project, even though they might have the nice car, the nice house. And I think the coolest thing about being an entrepreneur in, whether it's, hairstylist or if you're a barber or, me just, I measure patterns to make sure clothes fit. You know what I'm saying? Like you can always break it down to just whatever, but I think at the end of the day, if you're doing what you love and you just enjoy it and it's something that it's like so authentically and uniquely you, perception from other people, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you always have to look yourself in the mirror and you have to be like, am I being the best person that I want to be? Am I doing the things that I want to do? And everybody else, their criticism, opinions, just doesn't really matter.
So true.
Yep.
I love that. So did you have anybody along the way that you looked up to, like as a mentor or someone in the industry that helped you kind of get where you're at? Like, did you have any coach or like a business person? Yeah. I know your parents are strong.
Yeah, of course.
And like, I know your dad is an author now.
Yeah. Yep.
But like, was there anybody else that played like an integral part in like you becoming and being able to do this?
Honestly, like I always go back to my team, because like I didn't know I didn't go into it saying, oh, I want to run an apparel company. I was like, I just want a cool tank to work out in. And then like it started to sell and I was like, wow, that was fun. Like creating that was fun. I like creating. I've always liked creating. Let me just keep doing that. And then it was like, I need to learn more about this. Let me hop on YouTube. or, when my brother and Corey really like immersed ourselves, it was like we just scheduled calls and when we had conversations and we like did group research on, different brands, the things that were becoming hot, the colors that were, about to be hot in a year, and just different things and different ways that we wanted to present the brand. And it became a fun, creative thing where it was like, we, not that we didn't need a coach, we always need to learn. And so we were always doing research. We're always finding a way to do research. But for us, it was like, we can sit down and we can figure out what we want to do. And then based on what we want to do, let's go out and find out how to do that. And then come back and be like, and after we did it, okay, let's build on it. So I haven't had any formal coach with it. But I've made so many mistakes. Mm-hmm. Like Corey could tell you the amount of times that, and he lives on the East Coast, the amount of times that I've called him driving from LA after working a 9 to 5, leaving from San Diego to go to LA after work, and getting to LA, working on patterns and realizing before a launch or before something big, like the logo was out of place 2 inches by 2 inches, and them, our designers and everything having to redo it, us being under the gun, us being under budgeted, all that other type of stuff. And like the mistakes that we've made over time that now are our teachers, where it's like we go into certain things and it's like we have a checklist, all of the things that we have to make sure that are correct because we made that mistake 1,000 times in the past, and we won't do it again. Yeah. So it's been a lot of mistakes.
So life has been your teacher.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think having a team that like can be supportive and you guys have grown together, like self-education is the number one thing. And I think a lot of people think hiring a coach or having a mentor or having someone, they're just going to give you all the answers.
Yes. Yeah.
And while they may give you good guidance, like you have to be able to do the work. You have to be able to put the time in. Big and time. To see like this journey, what year are we on now with the company?
We are
5?
4. Yeah. In next February will be our 4-year anniversary. So.
Right. So this is no small feat. This was like birthing a child. It's like by the time like, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Takes time.
That's so cool. So what is the projection for the company? Where do you guys see it and where do you want to take it?
Yeah. So right now, we work out of a small warehouse. We are to the point where we are in contacts with a few distribution companies because, things are too big for us just to, with, who we have to kind of make sure, it's a good problem to have. And then going into 2021, we're actually having a meeting in 2 days to sit down, figure out the vibe that we want to have in 2021, the products and everything. One thing that I will say that we want to make sure that we do is we don't want to be called a quote unquote like hype beast company where it's like you do a launch, everything sells out, and then everybody has to wait for the next launch. We want to make sure that we have consistent styles that are in stock so that we're a consistent company where people can go to once they hit our site and it's like, oh, okay, now we're getting, daily orders, and we want to make sure that those daily orders outside of, the 2 weeks, like a launch in 2 weeks, are consistent. So, we know that launch days will be big because, we have the buzz now, but we don't want to have big launch days and then after 2 weeks kind of go ghost, Right. So that's what we'll be focusing on in 2021 is making sure that we stay consistent and that those consistent days after launch continue to rise, and anything that kind of comes out of our mind as we keep moving, we'll work on it as it comes.
Awesome. So where can people find 413 Apparel?
Yep. So people can find 413 Apparel at 413.us, FOURTHIRTEEN, hope I spelled that right, .US, and then 413_apparel on Instagram. Check us out. Hopefully you like the stuff.
And what's your Instagram? I know it's just your name, right?
Yep. So my Instagram is Rickey Lane II. That's RICKEYLANEII. So my full name is Rickey Lane Jasper II. Some people are like, that's Rickey Laney. I'm like, the I's are for the second. Call it whatever you want. Just spell it right. So.
So what would be your last piece of advice for anybody who is a little bit curious about starting something of their own? Like, what would you say to like Rickey 4 years ago right now?
Yeah, I would say do it. Like there's, you at the end of the day, I always feel like when you look back at your life, you never want to have regrets. And I think there's so many people that have made so much money and done so many things in fields that they actually hate, and they look back and they say, man, if I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, wherever, if I had just taken 6 months, a year to try something new, it doesn't mean you have to quit your job or anything, just to try something new, see how I feel about it, see where it can go, because you never know how many doors can open up. It goes back to what I started with, or like how many rooms you'll end up being in just by starting. So do it. The fear will start to dissipate as you get more confident in it. Like, I've never been more confident than I am now, but it's because I did it. It's because I made the mistakes, because I kept pushing through, and I ignored the negative feelings and the fearful feelings at times. So yeah, just do it.
Just do it. And I mean, every new level will require a new level of you. So
100%.
it's like, if growth isn't your thing, like, do what you do, stay where you're at, you're good. But if you are interested in doing something, like, know that that little bit of fear, to me, the fear, when that fear pops up, or when that little bit of like nervousness comes up, I'm like, oh, I really give a fuck about this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have that feeling.
Yep.
So I'm gonna embrace that feeling of, oh shit, I feel like I'm gonna throw up.
Yep.
Or like resistance, and I just like lean into it, because if you really don't want to be somewhere, you know that.
Yep.
If you feel like scared, or you feel that nervous energy, you're like, no, this means something. I'm onto something.
Yep.
So I always try to honor that feeling, and just, because fear can keep people so stuck from their fullest potential.
Absolutely.
And so stay around people doing big things, and like ask them questions and look for guidance and leadership, even when they're 10 years younger than you. It's like, it still motivates me to push and do things, because I had nothing when we had that dinner like a few years ago, and it's like, you know, I'm doing something totally different, but it's like staying around people who push you and can have these conversations and talk about business. Like, you know, get yourself out there. That's all I can say. Just do it, like you said.
Just do it. I love it.
If you guys love this podcast as much as I did, I would love if you could give us your feedback, share your takeaways, repost us on Instagram, tag Rickey, tag 413, tag Jessica Burgio, and Beauty Inspires Beauty.